Have you ever felt it? That knot in your stomach, a moment of silent panic when a colleague, a friend, or even a family member makes a request you do not want to fulfill. In a fraction of a second, your mind goes to war. One part of you screams no, but your mouth, almost on its own, says yes, of course. And then comes the weight, the silent frustration of once again having put yourself last, of having compromised your time, your energy, your own projects, to avoid potential disappointment on someone else's face. You carry this feeling of being left behind, not by others, but by yourself. This video is not about learning to be rude or selfish. It is about understanding the psychology behind this self-sabotage mechanism and deactivating it. It is about the crucial difference between the weak, apologetic no that invites negotiation and the calibrated no that commands respect and strengthens your position without destroying relationships. What we are going to analyze today is one of the most underestimated skills for men seeking to build power and authority in their lives: the ability to say no without guilt and without excuses. The lack of this skill is a silent leak of status. It costs promotions, erodes relationships, and most importantly, destroys your internal confidence. Stay with me, and I will show you the science behind why your brain panics when saying no. We will decode the fatal mistake that 99% of people make when trying to set a boundary. And most importantly, I will give you the mental tools and the exact tactics to transform your no into a declaration of power and self-mastery. This is not a self-help class. It is strategic training for your social and professional life. Let us begin. The science behind it, why your brain panics when saying no, and how to deactivate that alarm. To understand why setting a boundary feels like an internal battle, you need to understand how your brain is wired. Imagine your ancestor, thousands of years ago, in a tribe. For him, social rejection was not a discomfort. It was a death sentence. Being expelled from the group meant being alone, vulnerable to predators, and without access to resources. Belonging was synonymous with survival. Your modern brain has inherited this same alarm system. When you are faced with the possibility of saying no and potentially disappointing someone, this primitive alarm goes off. It does not distinguish between the threat of being cast out of a tribe and the risk of a coworker being slightly annoyed. To your limbic system, the emotional core of your brain, the threat is the same: social rejection. At that moment, a process that psychologists call amygdala hijack occurs. Your survival alarm takes control and effectively shuts down your prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for logical reasoning, planning, and impulse control. The fear of being judged literally prevents you from thinking clearly and accessing the response you should give. Added to this is a principle called acquiescence bias. Your brain is fundamentally lazy. It was designed to follow the path of least resistance to conserve energy. Conflict, however small, consumes an immense amount of mental resources. Agreeing, saying yes, is a neurological shortcut. It is the fastest way to avoid the energetic cost of confrontation and deactivate the social rejection alarm. High-status figures, like a Harvey Specter, seem immune to this because they have trained their brains to override this primitive alarm. They operate from the prefrontal cortex, focused on the objective and strategy, not on the need for approval. Therefore, the first and most important lesson is this: your difficulty in saying no is not a character flaw. It does not mean you are weak or too nice. It is a programming bug, an echo from the past that is still running on your mental operating system. And like any bug, it can be identified, understood, and finally fixed. The fatal mistake of the justified no: how your excuses annul your power and signal weakness. Now that you understand the why behind the brain panic, we need to analyze the tactical mistake that most people make immediately after. A mistake that completely nullifies your authority at the very moment you try to establish it. Over-justification. Think about the last time you tried to refuse something. Did your no come with a long paragraph of explanations, apologies, and justifications? If the answer is yes, you fell into the trap. Giving long and detailed excuses is a form of subcommunication. Your words might be saying no, but what you are really communicating is, I feel guilty for setting this boundary. Please give me permission to have my own priorities. Please validate my decision so I do not feel bad about it. It is a sign of weakness that invites negotiation. When you offer a menu of reasons, you give the other person a map of how to attack and dismantle your refusal. They might think, oh, if the problem is the report, you can do it tomorrow. If it is your commitment, it does not seem that important. You surrender your power. Now, contrast this with the no of a high-status figure, an archetype of power like Tommy Shelby. His no is short, direct, and final. It is a statement, not a request. He offers no justifications because his decision is not up for debate. The implicit message is that his time and resources are governed by his own rules, and he does not need anyone's validation to allocate them. His no is not the beginning of a conversation. It is the end of it. The strategic lesson here is fundamental. The strength of your no is inversely proportional to the length of your justification. Every extra word you use after the refusal is a brick you remove from your own wall of authority. The goal is not to be evasive, but to understand that your reasons are your own. You owe no one an apology for protecting your time, your energy, and your focus. Doing so is the first step to projecting unshakable authority. Mental model: swapping rejection for resource allocation, the secret of the CEO of your own life. So far, we have analyzed the brain programming that generates fear and the tactical error that destroys your authority. Now, let us install the mental model that changes the game completely. This is the psychological pivot that separates the reactive man from the strategic man. Stop seeing yourself as a participant in a social interaction and start seeing yourself as the CEO of your own life. Think about it. Your life is the most important company you will ever manage. And the most valuable assets of this company are not money. They are your time, your focus, and your energy. They are finite and precious resources. Every time someone makes a request of you, it is not a social event. It is an investment proposal. The person is asking you to allocate your most valuable assets to their project. The man who says yes to everything in an attempt to be nice is not a good colleague. He is a terrible manager. He is driving his own company to bankruptcy, spending his most vital resources on low-return projects, while his own priorities gather dust. This is where the shift happens. A strategic no is not an act of rejection. It is an act of resource allocation. It is the calm, impersonal statement of an executive who says, I appreciate the opportunity, but my resources are currently allocated to projects aligned with my company's long-term vision. These high-priority projects are your career, your mental health, your rest, your learning, your fundamental relationships. Figures of power understand this intuitively. They do not react emotionally to every request. They evaluate it with a simple, brutal question. Does this bring me closer to my goal? If the answer is no, the refusal ceases to be a personal trauma and becomes a logical and necessary business decision. Adopting this mindset removes guilt from the equation. You are not rejecting a person. You are protecting your assets. You are not being selfish. You are being a responsible strategist for the success of your most important enterprise, your life. The positive no tactic, a two-step formula to refuse requests while preserving or increasing respect. With the CEO mental model installed, you need a tactical tool, a communication formula to execute your decisions cleanly, one that disarms conflict before it even begins. This is the technique that allows you to refuse a request, maintain your position, and paradoxically, increase the respect the other person has for you. The tactic is composed of two simple steps. First, genuine validation of the request. Second, the impersonal declaration of your limitation. The first step is to validate. Before saying no, you need to communicate that you have heard and understood the other person's perspective. Phrases like, "I completely understand the urgency of this for you," or "I see how important this is for your project," are incredibly powerful. They disarm defensiveness instantly. You are not agreeing to the request, but you are validating its importance to the other person. You build a bridge of empathy instead of a wall of opposition. Only after validating do you execute the second step, the declaration of your position. And here is the secret. Your refusal is not about will. It is about capacity. It is not, "I do not want to." It is, "I cannot." You focus on your resource limitation, like a CEO analyzing their portfolio. Let us combine the two steps in a practical example. A colleague asks for your help on a project, but you are overloaded. The weak response would be, "I do not know. I am kind of busy, ... The powerful response, using the tactic, would be calm and firm tone. "I completely understand why this is a priority for you right now." Validation. "But at the moment, I cannot allocate the attention it deserves without compromising my other deadlines." Impersonal declaration. Notice the structure. You validated their need and then stated your limitation as a fact, not as an excuse. It is a no that projects authority, responsibility, and respect for the other person. It is sophisticated, unquestionable, and ends the negotiation, as there is nothing to argue about. It is not personal. It is a strategic decision of resource allocation. Mastering this formula is mastering the art of setting boundaries with power in class. The hidden side effect: how every calibrated no strengthens your internal locus of control and attracts respect. The positive no formula is a powerful tool, but its true value lies not just in the ability to refuse a request. The most profound benefit is the hidden side effect that each use of this tactic generates in your psychology over the long term. It is about building an internal pillar of power. Psychologists call this pillar the internal locus of control. It is the fundamental and unshakable belief that you are the causal agent of your life, not a passenger reacting to circumstances or the desires of others. A person with an external locus of control feels that their life is governed by luck, by their boss, by the expectations of others. In contrast, the person with an internal locus of control knows that they are in command. Every time you define a boundary in a calibrated and strategic way, you send a powerful neurological signal to your own brain. The message is clear. I am in control. My priorities are valid. I am the final authority on how my resources are spent. You are literally rewriting your mental source code, shifting from defense mode to command mode. And the people around you feel this status shift, even if unconsciously. Their need to test your boundaries diminishes. Inappropriate requests become less frequent. Why? Because your frame of power has been established. You begin to subcommunicate that your time is a valuable asset and that your limits are non-negotiable. Respect ceases to be something you need to ask for and becomes something you command naturally. This is the real transformation. It begins with the tactical decision to say no effectively, but it culminates in building an identity of power, of someone who is no longer a frustrated nice guy, but a calm and unshakable man under pressure, because he knows he is the master of his own social domain. Your decision, your command. We have gone through a strategic journey today. We have deconstructed the brain alarm that paralyzes you, exposed the fatal mistake of justifications that nullify your power, and installed a new mental model, that of the CEO of your own life, who does not reject, but allocates his most valuable resources. The tool to execute this strategy is in your hands, the positive no tactic. Remember the two-step formula. First, validate the other's position. Second, state your reality impersonally. I understand the importance of this for you, but at this moment, my capacity is allocated to another priority. It is a phrase that projects calmness, authority, and control, but I want you to understand the deeper point. Learning to say no in a calibrated way, goes far beyond managing your schedule. It is the act of training your brain to believe that you are in command. It is the most fundamental form of self-mastery. Every time you cleanly establish a boundary, you destroy a little of that voice that questioned your worth, and you build, brick by brick, a new identity of power and unshakable confidence. The final question is never what to do, but who you need to become. The decision to become a man who commands respect, who protects his focus, and who operates from the center of internal power is yours. It begins with one word. Now I want to hear from you. What was the most difficult situation in which you had to say no, and how did you handle it? Share your experience in the comments. Your story validates the struggle of others and strengthens this community.